Welcome everyone. I guess the rain is stopping many to come here. I hope they join in time. This is a very interesting and very special session because we are talking about more than business. And the relationship between these two friends, my friends too, is something that is something really special, because as I was talking to them before the session a few days back, there are so many things that we don't know, we assume. And hopefully today's session is going to tell us what is really beneath this, because friendships are, what we see, what we perceive is one thing, but there is really something more that happens, beneath that. And there are many literary friendships are really so important. And one thing that comes to my mind from my own language, Kannada, is that of Girish Karnad and his publisher. And Girish Karnad, when he wrote his first play, it was edited by one of the editors of the publication house, which is called Manohara Granthamala. And the editor's name is Kirtanath Kurtukoti, a very famous person. And they published the play, and the response that he got made him come back to India after his degree in Oxford, and which really made him a playwright. And he has written extensively about his publisher. And that relationship lasted till the end, and all his books were published. And here is a similar relationship, inspiring each other and showing new ways to Kannan and inspiring Murugan to write more. And let's hear them out. First, let me start with Kannan, and Kannan, whom I find really such an enthusiastic publisher. And I call him very successful. I don't know about the number of copies he sells or how much money he makes. That's not my measure of success. But any project that he takes on, he talks with such excitement, and he's a great storyteller. And always he smiles. And I don't know where the books end or where the projects end. But that enthusiasm and that storytelling around it, I think makes it really worthwhile. So let me start with Kannan. And you tell us, how did you first get into this business? And then we'll take it forward from there.
So my enthusiasm when I was, right from when I was turned a teenager, till I finished college was with the media, printed media. And that time that was the main media. So I would read every magazine that I could get my hands on in Tamil and English. And for many years I lived in Bangalore, so I could get quite a bit of national and international magazines. I would go to British Council and use every opportunity to. So that was my passion. And what I really want to do was to start a magazine sometime in my life. And that opportunity came in 1994 when I had come back and I had taken over the family business, and I had done some good work in that business, so I had the confidence to go and talk to my father saying that I want to start a magazine as my hobby. And he himself was a writer. His name is Sundara Ramaswamy. And he had, in 1988-89, he had launched a magazine, and then he had stopped after 8 numbers, saying that it is distracting him from his writing. And so that name he registered was still with us, and he handed over that name to me formally, registered in the collector's office. And then I started that magazine in 1994. So that was around the time when some big changes were happening in India. One was that economic liberalization had happened, and big technological changes in both communication and in printing technology. And we were in a position where you don't have to be near a printing press area to be a publisher. You could do it with the technology from far away. And we were in a small town in the south. And so we could think of starting a publishing house. And so by 1990s, my father had come into 60s. And though he had a very high quality publisher who was publishing him, but he was publishing very slowly. And most of the books were out of print. And my father felt that, it's time for him, he can't wait anymore to connect to his readers, and he needed all his book in print. So then we decided to publish his works. So that's how I got into publishing from the magazine. But while we started the publishing company, I also realized that not just my father, but most of the works of modern classical writers whom I respected and loved and knew many of them, their works were not available as a good quality edition. They were either in a bad quality edition, or they were put together in such a careless manner, it was actually spoiling their name as a writer. So simultaneously, we decided to start a list of other modern classical writers immediately, and we did that. And it was only after 4 or 5 years that we published the first contemporary work. So that is how that journey started into publishing.
And when did you meet Murugan?
So again, meeting Murugan had more to do with my magazine, which was Kalachuvadu. At that time, it was a quarterly magazine, than with the publishing initially. I knew Murugan as a reader, and I was reading his works. Then I realized that this is a writer that I want to work with, that I want to invite him to write in my magazine. So I wrote him a letter saying that, I would like to meet you, and at this time, I'm coming somewhere near your town. Can we set up a meeting? This happened in 1998. And we had a meeting, and I think my invitation was not to publish, but to write in the magazine first. And that's how the relationship initially started.
Now it's very interesting, because now what Murugan says will also be told to us through Kannan. Yeah, he has two voices, but I don't see it as two voices, because many times I have seen them as one. It's very interesting. It's difficult for me to think them separately. Anyway, that's probably my problem. Now for you, when you first started writing for him, I mean, what was your response? I mean, what kind of columns were you writing, and how did this evolve?
கண்ணனை நான் ஃபஸ்ட்டு மீட் பண்ணினது ஒரு 93ன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அப்போ அவர் வந்து அந்த மேகசின் தொடங்கலை. அப்போ சுந்தர் ராமசாமியுடைய மகன் அப்படிங்கிற அடையாளம் தான் அவருக்கு இருந்துச்சு. ஒரு தமிழ்நாட்டில் குற்றாலம்ங்கிற இடத்துல ஒரு பொயட்ரி ஒர்க் ஷாப் அது நடந்துச்சு. அதுக்கு அவர் வந்திருந்தார். அப்போ நான் வந்து சுந்தர் ராமசாமி ஊரில் இருக்காரா, அவரை பார்க்க போகலாமா அப்படின்னு அவர்கிட்ட பேசிகிட்டு இருந்தேன். அதுதான் ஃபஸ்ட்டு. அதுக்கப்புறம் அவருடைய கல்யாணத்துக்கு அவர் சுந்தர் ராமசாமி என்னை கூப்பிட்டுருந்தார். அப்போ கூட எனக்கு கண்ணன் பழக்கம் இல்லை, அவங்க அப்பா தான் தெரியும் ரைட்டராக. அப்போ அந்த கல்யாணத்துக்கும் நான் போயிருக்கேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் அவர் சொன்னது போல் 98ல் அவர் மேகசின்லாம் தொடங்கினதுக்கப்புறம் அவர் வந்து எங்கள் ஊர் பக்கம் வந்தபோது கூப்பிட்டு பேசினார். இந்த மாதிரி காலச்சுவடுக்கு எழுதுங்க அப்படின்னு கேட்டார். அப்போ நான் எழுத ஆரம்பித்தேன். ஃபஸ்ட்டு நான் வந்து புக் ரிவ்யூஸ் எழுதினேன் அதில். அதுக்கப்புறம் என்னுடைய ஷார்ட் ஸ்டோரிஸ் பப்ளிஷ் ஆச்சு. அப்புறம் கண்டினியூஸாக வந்து காலச்சுவடோட தொடர்ந்து நான் எழுத ஆரம்பித்தேன்.
So first time he remembers meeting me was in a town called Kuttalam, where there was a poetry workshop going on. And I had gone there, he's right, I had gone there. And he had also come as a poet there. And then I had not started my magazine, and he came to meet me as my father Sundar Ramaswamy's son, and wanted to know that if he travels to Nagarkoil, can he meet him now? So that was the first time we had a conversation. The second meeting was when my father invited him to my marriage, again in 1993, and he had come to that marriage. So like I said, that the first time we had a meeting as me as an editor and him as a writer was in 1998. And after that, he started writing book reviews, and then he also started writing short stories in Kalachuvadu.
And when did you become his publisher? What was that year?
ஒரு 2000ல் வந்து என்னுடைய ஷார்ட் ஸ்டோரி வந்தபோது அப்போ தான் அவர் தொடங்கி ஒரு கொஞ்சம் தான் புத்தகம், ஒரு 4-5 புத்தகம் அப்படி தான் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணியிருந்தார். என்னுடைய ஷார்ட் ஸ்டோரி கலெக்ஷனை வந்து அப்போது வெளியிடலான்னு கேட்டார். பட் அந்த சமயம் நான் இன்னொரு பப்ளிஷருக்கு ஏற்கனவே சொல்லிட்டேன், அதனால் அப்போ முடியல. அப்புறம் 2003 ஆர் 4 அப்போ தான் ஃபஸ்ட்டு என்னுடைய ஒரு பொயட்ரி கலெக்ஷனும் ஒரு நான் ஃபிக்ஷன் கிரிட்டிசிசம், தமிழ் நாவல் சிறுகதை பற்றியான ஒரு கிரிட்டிசிசம் நான் ஃபிக்ஷன், இந்த ரெண்டும் வந்து 2004ல் அவர் ஃபஸ்ட்டு என்னுடைய புக்ஸ் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணார்.
So I had approached him to publish his short story collection in the year 2000, but he was already committed to that collection. And later on, in either 2003 or 4, he gave 2 of his books to publish with me, with Kalachuvadu. The first was a collection of literary criticism, and then the next was his poetry collection. Those were the first two books we published.
You have 13, I know you have 13 novels, but how many collections of short stories are there?
6 collections.
6 collections. And about criticism, how many?
Actually, non-fiction, 15 books.
Okay. This aspect of him is little known to the English world in translation, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Do you have any plans for that?
Yeah, there is a bit of a good news to share with that.
Yeah.
That we have recently signed with Penguin, which will also include 3 of his non-fiction works appearing in English. One, a collection of his articles on cinema, around cinema, in the sense that he had worked in a, what do you call, a moving tent theater in his youth, selling sodas. So around that experience and the experience of watching movies, he has written a collection of, which is going to appear in English. And the second is, he's also a professor, Tamil professor in Tamil Nadu, and he wrote about some students who made an impact on him as a professor. So honor students. So that's another collection of articles. The third was, he had interviewed Bezwada Wilson several times in Delhi, and we published as a volume. Introduced, Perumal Murugan also wrote an introduction about his relationship, how it developed. Actually, Bezwada Wilson took a flight and straight came to his town when this Madhur Bagan controversy happened, though they didn't know each other, and just dropped in his house, saying, I want to meet this writer. And initially, I think Murugan's wife, who was here, drove him away, saying that nobody can meet Murugan. But he was not going away, so he came back again and again till the meeting happened. So all that is written in his foreword. So that is the third book. Along with the short story collection and novel, we just signed for 6 volumes in Tamil, actually, and 5 in English. Yeah. It's going to be 5 volumes in English.
Now that you mentioned about this Madhur Bagan, tell us what happened. Now you talk like a novelist, in detail.
மதுர் பாகன் பிரச்சனையில் நான் அது நடந்த விஷயங்கள் எல்லாத்தையும் ஷேர் பண்ணுற மனநிலை இப்போ இல்லை. அந்த நாவல் 2010 வந்து நான் எழுதி முடித்தேன். எழுதி முடித்து அது 2011 ஜனவரி புக் ஃபேர், சென்னை புக் ஃபேருக்கு பப்ளிஷ் ஆச்சு. என்னுடைய மற்ற நாவலை விட அதுதான் உடனே அது பக்கமும் குறைச்சலாக இருந்ததுனால ரீடர்ஸ் வந்து படிச்சுட்டு அப்போவே வாய்மொழி மூலமாக பரவுனதில் அந்த புக் ஃபேர்லேயே நல்ல சேல்ஸு அந்த மாதிரி இருந்துச்சு. ரீடர்ஸ்கிட்ட அவ்வளோ வேகமாக போன ஒரு புத்தகம். ஒரு 5 இயர்ஸுக்கு அப்புறம் தான், அதுவும் இங்கிலீஷில் டிரான்ஸ்லேட் ஆகி வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் இந்த ப்ராப்ளம் தொடங்குச்சு. அந்த ப்ராப்ளம் எப்படி தொடங்குச்சுங்கிறத பற்றி நிறைய வெர்ஷன்ஸ் இருக்குது. அதில் இன்னும் எனக்குமே அது எப்படி வந்துச்சுங்கிறத பற்றியான தெளிவு இல்லை. அது இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் வருஷம் கழித்து அதை கொஞ்சம் பேசலான்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
So he is not yet in the mood to speak in detail about the controversy yet, but the novel first was published in 2010 December. It was quickly read and sold very well in 2011 January book fair, and even during the book fair the readers came back with their they shared their thoughts with other friends who went and then bought the novel. So we could see that that the word of mouth thing is spreading and people are quickly coming and buying copies. So that is, as a writer, that is the first time one of his novels sold so well immediately after getting published. The controversy happened much later, after the book, a couple of years after the book was published in English, and we are not clear exactly why and how it was provoked. And maybe after a few years he can speak in more detail about that controversy.
Yeah, but I mean, what we know is about his Facebook post. I mean, what the world knows. So can you talk about it? Because you were partly responsible to take it to the world outside.
Yeah, I'm responsible, but there is another person here who is also responsible. It's I have to pinpoint my hands at Anjum Hasan here, yeah. And I'll tell you why. So in 1999, I decided to make an application to the India Foundation for Arts in Bangalore, with whom Anjum was then working. It was for a project called Documenting Pudumaipitha, which I did with my friend A.R. Venkatachalapati. And as a part of that project, Anjum came home in 2001 to see the work we have done, to review the project. And knowing that she will come, I had called Murugan and said, that these people are coming from IFA, so you should come over and I want you to be there so I can introduce you to them. So he came over and he stayed with me, and then I made the introduction. And from that, Perumal Murugan made another application to the India Foundation for Arts. It was while working for that project, he heard about this oral history of the temple festival, about which he then wrote Madhur Bhagan, then landed in trouble. So I'm not the sole responsible, he is also. So it's very interesting that Anjum is here, because I think at least for Perumal Murugan, probably she's the first person he has met outside Tamil Nadu in his, now very international life. So
about from the point that it was put on Facebook, because there's a long story and quite an interesting story about the fight, and because that is known to public. I mean, it's not something that is a secret. But, coming from you is quite interesting.
What I want to speak about here is that people talk about my role in the controversy. Yes, it was important, and there we had other friends who also stood by Perumal Murugan and helped him face those times. All that is important. But this is what I want to point out is that while we were into the controversy, it was moving in step by step. First was abusive phone calls, then a petition against him and me in the Namakkal police station, followed by a procession, then burning of copies, and then a bandh in the town, which made him leave the town with his family on the advice of the local police. Then he's sort of living in exile for some time in Chennai. And meanwhile, we published 2 of his novels in the next Chennai Book Fair in January, the parallel sequels to Madhur Bhagan. And then he came to Chennai Book Fair, he signed copies. At the same time, both of us got summons from the Namakkal High Collectorate saying, you should appear for this civil dispute resolution. And I told Murugan that I'm not going to go. I am not even sure if they have the authority to summon me. And I don't want to be in such a situation. But he said, no, I want to go and I want to, see if I can find an end to this. So he went to that court with a common friend who was a lawyer. And there, several events took place where he was forced to sign a document saying that he feels sorry for writing the novel. He agrees to, either make changes or withdraw the novel, kind of a compromise signing. When that happened, actually, I could see that everybody was moving then past the controversy. This is the end now. The writer has said that he's sorry about writing the novel and he's not going to reissue the novel. So the end of the story. So it's almost done, and everybody was moving on. But at that point, what brought the whole thing back were those 10 lines that he wrote on Facebook, saying that writer Perumal Murugan is dead. When I read that posting, I think it was already late in the night in Tamil. Then I immediately spoke to a couple of friends. I called Aniruddhan, and we immediately got it translated. And the same night, we posted it in English as well. So by the time I woke up in the morning, the whole situation had completely changed. That line had completely traveled across the world. It had made such a huge impact. By next day morning, when I came to the book fair, the media was already waiting at my stand. And either within 48 hours, the New York Times wrote editorial saying this writer has been declared himself dead in India. So that took to a huge new level of international attention, national attention, television, media. So what people don't seem to remember clearly is that what turned the thing into a national thing was Murugan writing those 10 powerful lines as a writer more than any other reason.
அந்த பிரச்சனை இல்லை சார். பொதுவாக இப்போ தமிழ்நாட்டில் கண்ணன் என்ன சொன்னாலும் நான் அப்படியே கேட்பேன் அப்படின்னு ஒரு நம்பிக்கை இருக்குது. ஆமாம், கிட்டத்தட்ட என் மனைவிக்கு கூட அந்த மாதிரியான எண்ணம் இருக்குது. அவங்க சொல்கிறத கூட கேட்க மாட்டேன், கண்ணன் சொன்னால் கேட்பேன்ட்டு. ஆனால் இந்த மாதுர் பகவான் பிரச்சனையில் கண்ணன்கிட்ட கேளுங்க, கண்ணன் சொன்ன எதையுமே நான் கேட்கல.
So he says there's a popular belief in Tamil Nadu, not just in Tamil Nadu, but also at his home, that he always listened to whatever I say. But the fact of the matter is, during the entire Madhur Bhagan controversy, he did not listen to anything I told him to do.
Now, Kannan, tell me this, the relationship that you have. See, it's a long relationship. And obviously, during this process that you have published his works, and that has opened up new things for you. I mean, you must have thought about the new business models, new ways of reaching it to readers and translations and whatnot. Say, can you talk about it? Because as a publisher, he's not just another writer, because there is more to it. As he just now said, the public perception, but there is more to it. So, and also it has an impact on your business. So can you talk about that?
So yes, yeah, two things. That one is that his impact on Kalachuvadu, because we publish his writing, and second that he is very much part of the Kalachuvadu collective. Very much part of the magazine, very much part of the publishing house. We are always working together. He is not only writing books for me, but he also helps me publish other volumes, edits volumes, reads for us, edits other writers' creative works for Kalachuvadu, and giving ideas on what we can publish, giving other people ideas on what work they can do, and then it comes to Kalachuvadu. So very much part of that collective. That's one kind of impact as sort of we can say a freelance editor working outside and doing things for Kalachuvadu. And the second, him as a writer. So that the major impact I would say is not with the way he had impacted Tamil publishing as a writer, but the way that he was part of my rights catalog the very first time I went to Frankfurt in 2007, among other writers. And then I was going year after year. I was selling rights of some other writers also, but I had some difficulty there. I was constantly pitching his work, but I could see that novels like Current Shows and novels like Season of the Palm, they did get a readership in Frankfurt. In fact, I could see that after 3-4 years that he had a small fan club among publishers and editors who come to Frankfurt, but they could not convince their own company in their pitches to publish that book. So what is the how do we market this? And we don't know this language, we don't know this writer. How can we sell this book? So those questions were asked to them in their own publishing company, and which are very important questions. So all that turned after this controversy, and now they could go and say that this is the writer who has been profiled by New York Times and so and so, and then they could they were able to sell their works in their companies, and so quickly I could sell some rights after the controversy to German, to French, and to English, and so that did happen. So that breakthrough was very important in my journey to take Tamil to the world. So I always say that I had two major aims after I went to Frankfurt. First, that to take the best of world literature to Tamil, and then try to take the best of Tamil writing to the world. In that second journey, the fact that I could sell many rights of Perumal Murugan did open many doors to me to be able to pitch other writers and other works.
And what about in India? How did it make any difference to your own publishing in Tamil?
So the big difference was that till I think 2015 I was known as Salma's publisher. For the last 8 years I am known as Perumal Murugan's publisher. I think it's time to get out of that and find a new writer.
Yeah. And Murugan, for you, like in this relationship, how has it impacted your writing? In the sense, that two things. One is writing itself, and other thing is like as a publisher, many times the pressure from the publisher works. And then suppose, for example, if you are not thinking about writing a short story, then he may push you to come out with a collection. So what has happened between the two of you that has impacted your creative process?
கண்ணனை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் ஒரு பப்ளிஷர் அப்படின்னு சொன்னோம்னா வெறுமனே புத்தகம் பிரிண்ட் பண்ணி விற்கக்கூடிய ஒருத்தர் அப்படின்னு அவரை பார்க்க முடியாது. ஃபஸ்ட்டு அவர் ஒரு நல்ல ரீடராக இருக்கக்கூடிய காரணத்தினால அவர் ஒரு ரைட்டரை அசஸ் பண்ணுறது நல்லா செய்வார். ஒரு ரைட்டருக்கு எந்த ஃபீல்டில் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்குது, எதில் அவங்க ஒர்க் பண்ண முடியும் அப்படின்லாம் அவருக்கு அவங்கள பற்றியான ஒரு நல்ல அசஸ்மெண்ட் இருக்கும். அந்த அடிப்படையில் தான் அவர் என்னையும் அணுகுவார். இந்த ஒர்க்கு, அதாவது என்னுடைய ஒர்க்குன்னு இல்லாமல் வேறு ஒர்க்கு ஏதாவது நான் ஒரு கலெக்ஷன் பண்ணி தர்றதோ எடிட் பண்ணி தர்றதோ அதெல்லாம் பார்த்திங்கன்னா இது பெருமாள் முருகனுக்கு இது இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டாக இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு அவர் முடிவு பண்ணி தான் எனக்கு கேட்பார். அப்புறம் இன்னொன்று என்னென்னா, அப்படி ஒரு ஒர்க்கை என்கிட்ட கொடுத்துட்டாருன்னா ரொம்ப அவசரப்படவே மாட்டார். நிறைய இப்போ என்கிட்ட கொடுத்து இன்னும் சில ஒர்க்கெல்லாம் 10 வருஷத்துக்கு மேலெல்லாம் பெட்டிங்காக இருக்குது. எப்போதும் அவசரப்படுத்தவே மாட்டார். இப்போ இந்த புக் ஃபேருக்கு பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணிடணும் அப்படின்லாம் அவசரப்படுத்தவே மாட்டார். ஆனால் என்னென்னா, நான் மறந்துட்டா கூட அவர் நினைவில் வச்சுக்கிட்டு அப்பப்போ இது உங்ககிட்ட இருக்குது அப்படின்னு சொல்லி ஒரு நினைவூட்டல் மட்டும் பண்ணுவார். ஒரு ப்ரெஷர் வந்து கொடுக்கவே மாட்டார். அதனால் நிறைய ஒர்க்கெல்லாம் 5 வருஷம் 10 வருஷம் கழித்து அது ரொம்ப அருமையாக வரும். அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு பப்ளிஷர் கண்ணன். என்னை மட்டும் இல்லை, காலச்சுவடில் இருக்கக்கூடிய பல பேரும் ரைட்டர்ஸ் எல்லாத்தையுமே அந்த மாதிரி அணுகக்கூடிய ஒருத்தர் கண்ணன். டிரான்ஸ்லேட்.
I've been translating Murugan for many years, but this is a very odd experience because I have to translate him talking about me. So I may sound a little immodest, but that's not me talking. So what Murugan has said briefly is that I'm a good reader, so I'm able to access what is the best the writers can do, not just in their own writing, but what else can I ask Murugan to do that is appropriate to his talents and to his creativity. So that's the kind of work I ask him to do, and though I remind them of this work is to be done, I don't put any pressure on them to complete the work that I needed by this time or that time. And there are works pending with them for 5 or 10 years. Since I allowed that work to take its own time, whenever they mature, they mature fully and come out very well. That's it.
அதே மாதிரி ஒரு புத்தகம் இப்போ நான் ஒரு நாவலோ ஒரு ஷார்ட் ஸ்டோரி கலெக்ஷனோ நான் கொடுத்தேன் அப்படின்னு சொன்னால் அவர் அவசரமாக பப்ளிஷ் பண்ண மாட்டார். ஏன்னா இப்போ கூட இத்தனை 10-12 நாவல் நான் எழுதி நிறைய புத்தகங்கள் வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் கூட இப்போ நான் ஒன்று எழுதி கொடுத்தேன்னா யார்கிட்டையாவது ஒரு 2 பேர்த்திட்ட கொடுத்து அவங்கள படித்து பார்க்க சொல்லலாம். ஏதாவது நாம் எடிட் பண்ண வேண்டியிருக்குதா, கரெக்ஷன் பண்ண வேண்டியிருக்குதான்னு பார்த்து பண்ணுவோம், அவசரப்படாதீங்க அப்படின்னு தான் சொல்லுவார். அதனால் புத்தகம் நிறைய கொண்டு வந்துடணும் அப்படிங்கிற இதை விட கொண்டு வரக்கூடிய புத்தகங்கள் நல்ல தரமாக இருக்கணும், அந்த ரைட்டருக்கும் நல்ல விதமாக வரணும், அந்த பார்வை வந்து அவர்கிட்ட எப்போதும் உண்டு.
So I'm not in a, this is not what he is saying, others may not agree, that I'm not in a hurry to publish books, and that even when after writing 12 novels, if he gives me a new manuscript, my suggestion would be, let us take time, let us ask a couple of people to read it, see if there are any changes that are necessary, any corrections to be done, and then let us publish it, and let's not be in a hurry to publish it. So that's the kind of things I take up, not just for him, but also for other writers, so that when it's published, it is the best that has come out of the writer, and not something that is in a hurry.
அதே மாதிரி நான் வந்து என்னுடைய புக்ஸ் எல்லாமே படிப்படியாக வேறு பப்ளிகேஷனில் இருந்துச்சு. என்னுடையது எல்லாமே காலச்சுவடுக்கு கொண்டு வர்றதுக்கான காரணம் என்னென்னா, ஒரு ரைட்டரை வந்து கண்ணனுடைய எப்படி அப்ரோச் பண்ணுறதுங்கிற அந்த மெத்தேடு தான். அவரை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் ஒரு ரைட்டருக்கு உரிய மரியாதையை கொடுக்கக்கூடியவர். தமிழில் இருக்கக்கூடிய நிறைய பப்ளிஷர்கிட்ட நீங்கள் அதை பார்க்க முடியாது. புத்தகம் வந்து சரியாக ராயல்ட்டி தரமாட்டாங்க. அதே போல் வந்து இப்போது புத்தகங்களுடைய காப்பீஸ் நான் கேட்டேன்னா எனக்கு அவ்வளோ சீக்கிரம் அவங்ககிட்டேருந்து வாங்க முடியாது. அப்படியே கொடுத்தாலும் அதுக்கு வந்து உடனே பே பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இந்த மாதிரியான விஷயங்கள்லாம் வந்து கண்ணன்கிட்ட இருக்காது. எவ்வளவு புத்தகம் நான் கேட்டாலும் எனக்கு உடனே அனுப்பிடுவார். என்னுடைய ராயல்ட்டி எப்போ கணக்கு போடுறாங்களோ அப்போ கழிச்சுக்குவார். அந்த மாதிரியான அப்ரோச் வந்து அவர்கிட்ட உண்டு. அப்புறம் ஒரு ரைட்டரை எந்த இடத்துலையும் விட்டு கொடுக்க மாட்டார். அது ரொம்ப முக்கியமான ஒரு விஷயமாக நான் பார்க்குறேன். காலச்சுவடில் வந்திருக்கக்கூடிய புக்காக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அதை எழுதின ரைட்டராக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அதை விட்டு கொடுக்க மாட்டார். அதனால தான் நான் மற்ற பப்ளிகேஷனில் இருந்து எல்லாமே படிப்படியாக வாங்கி எல்லாமே காலச்சுவடு அப்படின்னு. இப்போ என்னை வந்து தமிழில் வேறு எந்த பப்ளிஷரும் நீங்கள் எனக்கு ஒரு புத்தகம் கொடுங்கன்னு கேட்கவே மாட்டாங்க. ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் தெரியும், இவர் தரமாட்டார் அப்படிங்கிறது எல்லாம் தெரியும். அவ்வளவு எனக்கு வந்து கண்ணனோட டீல் பண்ணுறது அவ்வளவு வசதியான ஒரு விஷயமாக இருந்தது. அதுக்கு காரணம் அவருடைய அப்ரோச் தான்.
So initially he was publishing with a few publishing houses, but step by step he moved all those books, and Kalachuvadu has become his exclusive publisher. And the reason for is that he feels that, I respect writers and I know how to approach them, how to work with them. And his experience with other Tamil publishers has not been always very pleasant. They don't pay royalties, they don't sign contracts professionally. And even if you ask for copies, they will expect the money to be paid by the writer immediately. Whereas with Kalachuvadu, the copies go to them and, we settle their account when we pay royalty, and we never ask the writer to pay for for the books they buy. And also another important point you wanted to mention was that I stand by the writers and the books that I publish, and I won't step back from that position. And for that reason, he has decided that he'll be publishing all his books with Kalachuvadu, and publishers have stopped asking him for his books, other publishers, because they all have now come to know that this is his position.
இன்னொன்று சொல்ல
Yeah, please go ahead.
இது அதே போல் இப்போ எனக்கு மட்டும் இல்லை, இன்னும் காலச்சூரில் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணக்கூடிய நிறைய ரைட்டர்ஸ்க்கு அவர் வந்து அப்சர்வ் பண்ணி நிறைய ஐடியாஸ் தருவார். இப்போ எனக்கு 2 புத்தகம் அவர் கொடுத்த ஐடியாவில் தான் நான் பண்ணினேன். 2018-19 இது போல் நிறைய ஃபெஸ்டிவலுக்கு நானும் கண்ணனும் ட்ராவல் பண்ணோம். அப்போ அந்த ஃபெஸ்டிவல்லாம் நான் பேசின விஷயங்களை அவர் அப்சர்வ் பண்ணி சொன்னார், நீங்கள் உங்கள் அம்மாவை பற்றி நிறைய பேசுகிறீங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னார். எங்கள் அம்மா அப்போ இறந்து 5 இயர்ஸ் ஆயிருந்துச்சு. ஆனால் என்னை அறியாமலே என்னுடைய அம்மாவை பற்றி நான் நிறைய பேசிகிட்டே இருந்திருக்கேன். அவங்களுடைய அந்த பாதிப்பு வந்து எனக்குள்ளே இருந்துக்கிட்டே இருந்திருக்கு. அதை சொன்னார், நீங்கள் உங்கள் அம்மாவை பற்றி அவங்கள பற்றியான நினைவுகளாக ஒரு புத்தகம் எழுதலாமே, கொஞ்சம் கட்டுரைகள் எழுதி பாருங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு அந்த ஐடியா வந்து அவர் கொடுத்தது தான். அந்த புத்தகம் தான் எனக்கு அம்மான்னு இப்போ இங்கிலீஷ்லேயும் வந்து அது உண்மையில் ரொம்ப நல்ல கவனம் பெற்ற என்னுடைய ஒரு நான் ஃபிக்ஷனில். அப்புறம் இன்னொன்று, அந்த புத்தகம் எழுதுனதுக்கப்புறம் நான் வந்து உண்மையில் ரொம்ப ஃப்ரீயாக ஃபீல் பண்ணேன். அம்மா இறப்பு எனக்குள்ளே பாதிச்சிருந்த அந்த அவ்வளவு பாதிப்பும் அப்படியே ரிலீஸ் ஆன மாதிரி எனக்கு ஆச்சு. அது முக்கியமாக அவர் கொடுத்த ஒரு ஐடியா. அப்புறம் அதே போல் பெசவாடா வில்சன் அவர் என்னை சந்தித்து, அதுக்கப்புறம் நாங்கள் பல முறை அவர் சென்னை வரும்போது என்னை பார்ப்பார், நான் டெல்லி போனால் அவரை பார்ப்பேன். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஷிப் அவரோட எனக்கு டெவலப் ஆகிருந்துச்சு. அதுக்கு எனக்கும் அவருக்கும் ஏதோ ஒரு விதத்தில் ஒரு மனரீதியாக நல்ல ஒரு எங்களுக்குள்ளே ஒரு அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் அப்ரோச்சில் இது எல்லாமே நல்லா இருந்து ஒரு நல்ல ஃப்ரெண்டாக ஆனார். இதை அப்சர்வ் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருந்து அவர் சொன்னார், அவர் பெசவாடா வில்சன் நல்லா தமிழ் பேசுவார், தமிழ்நாட்டில் சில வருஷம் இருந்தவர். அதனால் கண்ணன் தான் அந்த ஐடியா சொன்னார், நீங்கள் அவரை இந்த மாதிரி உங்கள் ஃப்ரெண்டாக இருக்கார், ஏன் அவர் இவ்வளோ வேலைகள் செஞ்சுருக்காரு, அவரை பற்றி ஒரு நல்ல புத்தகம் வரல, சில இன்டர்வியூஸ் இங்கிலீஷில் வந்திருக்கு, ஆனால் பெருசாக ஒன்றும் வரல, நீங்கள் கொஞ்சம் டீட்டெயிலாக அவர்கிட்ட இன்டர்வியூ பண்ணுங்கள் அப்படின்னு அந்த ஐடியாவும் அவர் தான் சொன்னார். அப்போ நான் ஃபஸ்ட்டு அவரை ஒரு முறை டெல்லி போன போது ஒரு இன்டர்வியூ பண்ணினேன். அது எனக்கே ரொம்ப திருப்தியாக இருந்தது. எங்கள் பையன் அந்த இன்டர்வியூ பண்ணும்போது என் கூட இருந்தான். அவனுக்கு வந்து அது மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு இன்ஸ்பயர் பண்ணக்கூடிய ஒரு விஷயமா இருந்தது. என்னப்பா இவ்வளவு செஞ்சுருக்காரு, இப்படி சாதாரணமாக இருக்காரு அப்படின்னு அவன் இதில் ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணவன் அவன் வந்து கேட்டு ரொம்ப அசந்து போய் சொன்னான். அதுக்கப்புறம் அதை இன்னும் 2 முறை அவர்கிட்ட என்ன பேச வேண்டிய விஷயங்கள்லாம் பேசி அதை ஒரு புத்தகம் ஆக்கணும். இது 2 புத்தகமும் கண்ணன் கொடுத்த ஐடியா. இது மாதிரி நிறைய அவர் வந்து அப்சர்வ் பண்ணி நிறைய ஐடியாஸ் தருவார். உங்களுக்கு சங்கடமா இருக்கா?
Don't it's too modest.
சொல்லுங்க.
So he's saying that not just for him but also for other writers, I give them ideas which lead to good writing. And in this case, he has written 2 books from the ideas I shared with them. One was that we were traveling together extensively in 2018-19 to many festivals. And I told him then after that that you very often speak about your mother who had passed away few years before that. And I think there's a book inside you to be write about your mother. You should write that book. And then he wrote a book in Tamil which is now available in English as Amma. And that book is one of his widely acclaimed non-fiction books. But other than that, writing the book actually helped him release himself from the pain of losing his mother and made him feel free after writing that book. The second book was Beswada Wilson. They had met each other and they were meeting whenever he came to Chennai or Murugan went to Delhi. And one reason for this is that Beswada Wilson can speak Tamil quite fluently. He had worked in Tamil Nadu for many years. And So I told Murugan that, that there is a book that you can do about Beswada Wilson, interview him, make into a book about his life and works, and let's get it published, and we can also sell rights in English and other languages. And that book is also now published in Tamil last year, and now Penguin has taken the rights. So that's another aspect of my personality he wants to. Yeah, so when he was interviewing Wilson, the first part of the interview itself was very impactful. His son was with him just to record the interview, but he was completely taken aback by, he had a huge impact on him, what Wilson said, that, his work and, the intensity of what he is doing, and that, but at the same time, he's not somebody who looks very grand or, putting on airs around himself. Such a simple man, but doing such powerful work that had a lot of impact on his son. And then he did a few more times, he met him and did, recorded him for more time, and then that's how it became into a book.
I think we have, we'll open up for questions now. Yeah, go ahead. Just before that, who is your first reader?
Now my wife.
Okay. She's here.
Good afternoon. First of all, I have to say that I've been the most excited about today because of this session. So I'm really happy to attend it. And could you both please talk a bit more about the relationship dynamics between an author and a publisher when a controversy happens? So do publishers advise authors to self-censor? Or what is really the future dynamics between, the relationship dynamics between an author and publisher in such a scenario? And could Sir talk a bit about what was going on in his mind when he was in exile, and what would have happened if the publisher would have not stood up with him and his works?
அந்த சமயம் கண்ணன் வந்து ஆக்சுவலாக ஒரு பப்ளிஷராக அந்த சமயம் நடந்துக்கல. ஆக்சுவலாக ஒரு ஃப்ரெண்டாக தான் அதை டீல் பண்ணாருன்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். இல்லை, ஒரு பப்ளிஷர் ஒரு ரைட்டருக்கு இந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு நெருக்கடி வரும்போது எப்படி நடந்துக்கணுங்கிறத ஒரு முன்னுதாரணமாக கூட அவர் அதை செஞ்சுருந்துருக்கலாம். ஏன்னா நான் என்னுடைய புத்தகம் எல்லாமே எதுவுமே விற்பனையில் இருக்க வேண்டாம் அப்படின்னு நான் அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டேன். அப்போ அவர் வந்து அக்ரிமெண்ட் படி பார்த்தீங்கன்னு சொன்னால் அவர் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணலாம், அதுக்கு வந்து அவருக்கு ரைட்ஸ் உண்டு. ஆனால் ஒரு தார்மீக ரீதியாக என்ன சொன்னார்னா, நீங்கள் அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டீங்க, நான் அதனால் வந்து அதுக்கு மதிப்பு கொடுத்து நான் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணலை அப்படின்னு சொல்லி நிறுத்திட்டார். அது வந்து உண்மையில் மிகப்பெரிய எனக்கு மிகப்பெரிய அளவுக்கு சப்போர்ட் பண்ண விஷயமாக நான் பார்த்தேன். அது மட்டும் இல்லை, அந்த சமயத்தில் வந்து ஒரு ஃப்ரீடம் ஆஃப் எக்ஸ்ப்ரெஷன் சம்மந்தமாக இந்த பிரச்சனையை வெளியில் வந்து பேசினவங்க, என் சார்பில் பேசினவங்க 2 பேர் தான், கண்ணனும் இன்னொரு என்னுடைய ஃப்ரெண்டு ஹிஸ்டாரியன் ஏஆர் வெங்கடாச்சலபதி. இந்த 2 பேர் தான் மீடியா எல்லாத்துக்கும் வந்து பேசினாங்க. எல்லாமே என் பக்கம் நின்று நான் என்ன பேசுவேனோ அந்த கோணத்தில் தான் அதை எல்லாத்தையும் பேசினாங்க. இது 2ம் மிகப்பெரிய எனக்கு வந்து ஒரு பெரிய பலமாக இருந்ததுன்னு தான் நான் ஃபீல் பண்ணுறேன். அப்படி இல்லாமல் பப்ளிஷர் கைவிடக்கூடிய ஒரு பப்ளிஷராக இருந்து இந்த சமயம் பார்த்து நிறைய பிரிண்ட் பண்ணி விற்கிறதுக்கு சான்ஸு அப்படின்னு சொல்லி நினச்சிருந்தா எனக்கு உண்மையில் அந்த சுச்சுவேஷன் எப்படி இருந்திருக்கும், எப்படி அதை நான் டீல் பண்ணியிருப்பேங்கிறது இப்போ வரைக்கும் எனக்கு கேள்வியாக தான் இருக்குது. அது உண்மையில் மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு கஷ்டமாக இருந்திருக்கும்னு தான் தோணுது.
So he feels that at that time I did not act as his publisher, my response was as a friend. In the sense that when he announced that he wishes to withdraw all his works, I was not under any contractual obligation to follow that advice. I could have published those books for the period of the contract, but I told him that since you have made that announcement, though I don't agree with it, I will abide by that announcement, and I will stop publishing your works. And also that myself and our friend A.R. Venkatachalapati, when he decided that he is not going to be a writer anymore and silenced himself, we spoke on his behalf from his angle on freedom of expression, and that was of huge support to him. The fact that I didn't decide to exploit the commercial aspect of the controversy to sell books, but rather I agreed to withdraw stop publishing the books, that was of immense support to him. And instead of a publisher who stands with the writers, if he had published another publisher who might have seen the commercial opportunity, it might have been a much more difficult times for him.
அதே போல் கண்ணன் வந்து ஒரு மேகசினுடைய எடிட்டர், அவர் ஒரு ஜர்னலிஸ்ட் அப்படிங்கிற கோணத்துலேயும் கண்ணனை பார்க்கணும். அவர் வந்து தொடர்ந்து 30 வருஷமாக காலச்சூடு நடத்திட்டு வர்றாரு, அந்த மேகசின் நடத்திட்டு வர்றாரு. அதில் ஃப்ரீடம் ஆஃப் எக்ஸ்பிரஷன் சம்மந்தமாக நிறைய ஆர்டிகிள்ஸ் பப்ளிஷ் பண்ணியிருக்கார். அது கண்ணன் எழுதுனதும் இருக்குது, மற்றவங்க எழுதுனதும் இருக்குது. அந்த அளவுக்கு அதில் ஃப்ரீடம் ஆஃப் எக்ஸ்பிரஷனில் அவருக்கு மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் உண்டு. அந்த அடிப்படையில் தான் இந்த மாதுர்பாகன் கேஸ் வந்து சென்னை ஹைகோர்ட்டில் வந்தபோது அவர் சார்பில் வந்து பியூசிஎல் உடைய பிரசிடெண்ட்டாக இருந்த லாயர் சுரேஷ், அவர் தான் மிக முக்கியமான ஒரு லாயராக இருந்தார். அதில் கண்ணன் காட்டின இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டு, அவர் தான் வாதாடணுங்கிறதும், அவருக்கு தேவைப்படக்கூடிய உதவிகளை செஞ்சதும், அது வந்து அவருடைய இந்த ஃப்ரீடம் ஆஃப் எக்ஸ்பிரஷனில் அவருக்கு இருந்த இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டு தான் முக்கியமான காரணம். அந்த அடிப்படையிலையும் கண்ணனை பார்க்கணுன்னு எனக்கு தோணுது.
So he also wants to point out to another aspect of me as a journalist and editor of a magazine. I was seriously committed to freedom of expression right from the time I started Kalachuvadu, and we continued to publish many articles written by me and by others on the topic. And that commitment, with that commitment, I stood by him during this controversy. And it was the lawyer who represented me, then the president of the People's Union of Civil Liberties of India, Dr. Suresh. He was my lawyer. He played the key role in arguing the case in the Madras High Court, resulted in the judgment. The way I supported that case and the lawyer in arguing the case was because of my very deep commitment to the idea of freedom of expression. I think I should have found somebody else to translate this session.
He is very embarrassed to translate that praise for him, and I know that he has not translated fully. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
My question is to Mr. Vivek Shanbhag. And I'll ask it in Kannada because he is speaking in Tamil.
Yeah.
ಸರ್, ಈಗ ಒಂದು ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಕಾಶಕರ ಜೊತೆ ನಿಮಗೂ ಒಂದು 30-40 ವರ್ಷ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇದೆ. ಬರ್ತಾ ಬರ್ತಾ ಸೈದ್ಧಾಂತಿಕವಾದ ಭಿನ್ನಾಭಿಪ್ರಾಯಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ನೀವು ಪ್ರಸಿದ್ಧರಾಗ್ತಿದ್ದ ಹಾಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಮಾರಾಟ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ಬೇಕಾದ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅನಿಸಿದಾಗ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ? ಆ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ, ಆ ಒಂದು ನಿಷ್ಠೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ದಾಂಪತ್ಯ ನಿಷ್ಠೆ, ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ
ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾ ನಾನು ಕೇಳ್ತೇನೆ?
ನಿಮಗೆ, ನೀವು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು.
What he is saying is that between the writer and the publisher, there is a long relationship of say 30-40 years, and suppose at some point in time that you realize that politically you don't agree with each other, or the writer or the publisher is using other means to sell the books. I don't think that's relevant for them, but in any case, if there is a political difference, how would you deal with that? Would you still go with the same publisher, is what his question is. For him, right? Or to me? Yeah. For me also, okay. No, I think this question does not arise with my publisher at least, because I don't think there is a difference in politically. But in today's circumstances, if the politics of the publisher is different, I wouldn't go with that publisher. In today's circumstance, if it was 20 years back, it would have been different, because the environment was different and tolerance levels were different and disagreement was, but today I wouldn't go.
So, I think, it has to be, we have to discuss the nature of those political differences. We work as a big collective team in Kalachuvadu, and we are of different ideological backgrounds, and we have a lot of differences among ourselves. But I would not, I'm not a publisher of any right-wing writers, and that is not within my sphere of difference that I can accept. So I would publish their creative works. I may publish their poetry collection, but I will not publish their ideological arguments. That would be my limitation. For writers, I think they have to make their own decision on that.
And I think freedom of expression and support for right of writers, I think Kannan as well as Murugan and even myself, all of us were part of the team that founded PEN South India, which is unfortunately did not take off, but at least for a few years we supported that.
So I'll just make it make a brief point to clarify my position. Very recently, both of us and some other writers, we signed a statement, and the statement itself became a very big controversy. The reason is that a writing ideologue was arrested in Tamil Nadu, and we signed a statement saying he must not be arrested, which is not at all saying that that we in any way agree with what he was saying. That is completely different. But that doesn't mean that if you can't arrest people whom you think not only disagree with, but probably might think what they're saying is very poisonous. But then, according to the Indian Constitution, as long as they have the right to say what they're saying, I don't think arresting somebody offhand, and police having the right to decide, may act on freedom of expression itself. I think all that's a very, very problematic area. So we did sign that, and we stood by what we did. So that's how I think how I see all these things. Yeah.
To build on the same thing, but what if the politics of the translator? Do you find that it affects the outcome?
Can you explain what you mean by the politics of the translator?
In the sense of just their beliefs, or what if that starts to kind of show in the translation? Because of course, like I know that you have a friendship and you are also his publisher, but say for example, if someone else were to translate his work and it were to go to another publisher, right? They're only reading the translation, they're not reading the original material. What if there's some dilution of the political aspects or certain other beliefs in the translated material?
So, okay. So I can only speak what has happened so far is that we have always had a say that in either in consultation or in sort of suggesting who can be a translator for all the translations that we have done. And so it is not something that's completely entirely out of our hands. And I feel fairly sure that it's not happened so far. But I think that a translator does have his own point of view about translation itself, and they can come with different beliefs, different schools of thought, and I would allow those differences to them as a translator. But absolutely, they have no right to interfere in either editing or sort of exaggerating or sort of underplaying the writer's opinion. That is not something that's acceptable as a translation.
Yeah, and I think it is. Yeah, last question. No, we are up. Time up. I guess we are time up. Thank you. Thank you, Murugan. Thank you, Kannan. And thank you, everyone.